Look, we talk to be seen. And this is a problem because talking to someone should be to see them. Because every conversation has become a transaction, a validation, impressions management, and what's my angle. And a lot of this is due to how much young adults are struggling. Like, I get it. You know, when you're in college, you're basically told, bro, you gotta network. You gotta really grind and hustle for the view. And so for some reason, we've taken that mentality and adopted it into like casual conversation. And so instead of just, sitting there enjoying somebody, I've noticed myself at parties, I'm like, oh, can I say something funny or charming? Oh, they laughed. That's awesome. I just am checking boxes on some arbitrary list for somebody that I'm never going to talk to again. And how much of that last conversation you had were you actually listening to versus just waiting your turn thinking, oh, when can I interject? Is it okay now to speak? Because I'm willing to bet you that happens more often than not. Now, this is where Riz culture gets it fucking twisted. Because Riz, this idea of Riz charisma, is the basis of conversation skills to be charming as a means of being tactical, or how to hold attention just to get a number. And in making conversation a vehicle for outcomes, we've devalued the thing itself, because genuine interest is what allows most people to connect. And that is actually very attractive, because every single time you listen to somebody, they feel like they exist. And that is the reason why photos and videos and just journalism about people is so popular, because everyone wants to be seen and everyone wants a story to tell. But performing feels safer than actually showing up and allowing their vulnerability to enter your own mind. Like, I bet you that you've been on the receiving end of somebody performing at you. Like, let's just say it's a peer that looks up to you, or it's someone that it's just trying to impress you. Like, for me, I do a lot of MMA, and I love it when people talk to me about wanting to come train in my gym, and they're under no obligation to do so. But frequently I've met people that are just like, yeah, man, like, I'm totally into it, bro. Like, I do this all the time. Like, you should see this video of me doing that. And it's like, dude, you're just showing off. Like, I don't care. Like, how about you just show up and interact and have fun? Like, this doesn't need to be such a fucking performance. But because they're trying to impress me, they feel the need to, like, conform themselves to a way that is relatable. And we do this all the time, especially when guys talk to girls in the street like, oh man, yeah, you like reading books? I read all these books. But oftentimes it's a damn lie, so stop doing that shit. And let's dig into the concept a little further. Simone argued that the capacity for attention is almost completely destroyed by the way that we're educated. And she explains that from childhood, we are rewarded for performing the right answer. So that's like a quick response, a correct impression. Like, the teacher might ask, does anybody know what time it is? Or no. When you're in public and someone asks, does anyone know what time it is? And we're all scrambling to be like, oh, fuck, I gotta know the time. And it's like, dude, I don't know the time, but like, why do I feel this need to be right about everything? Like, that shit is fucking ridiculous, man. And so she distinguishes between two kinds of intelligence, which is the ability to process quickly and produce an output versus receive deeply and sit with what it finds. And so this Riz tactics, the charm framework that we're basically indoctrinated into, is all about outputting an optimized product to a situation as opposed to receptiveness. And the person on the other end feels that difference immediately. And I believe that's why a lot of us feel so isolated, because there's so little third spaces for us to interact in that every conversation needs to be a means to an end. Whether it's a teacher-student dynamic, whether it's your coworkers, you're just trying to schmooze, bro, off of each other, or you got to talk to your boss and you got to rub their balls and make them feel all good and shit. Like, dude, I'm sitting outside of a cafe right now being a bum, but in being a bum, I'm able to connect with real people because there's really no objective or reason for me being there except to be around people that I like. And that's what you have to look for. Because think about the old woman on the plane. She'd just been to a funeral, and in another version of that flight, I'm on my phone the whole time, and she goes home having felt invisible for 4 more hours. And look, the average date, just to connect that back in, lasts under an hour. We've industrialized human connection to the point where we give a stranger less time than a job interview. That's fucking crazy. Like, what happened to the days where you would hang out with your friends in the summer and you just spend all day with them? Or like you'd meet some peer in school and you guys would go after school and just hang out for hours and hours. Like, I get it. We gotta work. But there's free days still, and a lot of those free days are spent in solitude as opposed to connection. And I believe that's because a lot of us are exhausted by the output that social media is just fucking screaming at us. But that's why you gotta turn your phone off and find old ladies on planes. I'm being honest. And look, silence, listen, we've lost the ability to sit with it because silence has become something to fill. It's like, it's awkward. It's a sign that something is wrong. And I feel like I'm a great conversationalist, but even I noticed myself doing it. Like I was sitting outside this bar last night and I was just talking about reggae music and I'm like, shit, do I really know reggae music that well? I was like trying to think of the Bob Marley song so I could be like relatable and cool. And it's like, dude, I could just ask him or I could just sit there and listen to the song. And not every conversation that we need to have has to end with a phone number or like a job interview or a date. Like, what if I just sat there with these people and enjoyed the fact that I'm around other human beings? And look, silence is where the real stuff lives because the space between the notes is what makes the music. I know that's corny, but like genuinely, that is like, it's the composition of a conversation is built upon silence. And if you can't sit with it, you're just giving a fucking speech, dude. Like, go stand on some podium, all right, bro? Like, what are you, fucking Donald Trump? Look, think about the difference between silence with someone you're genuinely comfortable with versus someone you're performing for. Like, one feels anxious, but one feels genuinely rejuvenating. Because emotional receptiveness is actually listening to someone so that you learn about yourself too. Because we forget of how much knowledge there is in people we walk past every day because we're too busy performing to receive it. Like, I always try to make an effort to speak to people at fast food restaurants because no one gives a fuck about their day. And I'm not some savior, but I want to understand what they're going through. And I think it's important as humans that give a fuck about making a better world to actually listen to those around us. Like maybe it's some old man in a park that gives you some life advice. You would be surprised to recognize how many people have so much fucking knowledge inside of their minds. And yeah, some days I genuinely don't want to talk to anyone. But you got to understand that these feelings are not rude and it doesn't make you antisocial. It's just knowing yourself because the goal is not to talk more. So part of me valuing real conversation has just been days where I don't talk to anyone. Or like a friend's like, yo, man, let's go grab lunch. And I'm just like, no. I just say no. Or I just don't show up because, and I'm not flaking on them, but like I just don't go to it because I don't give a fuck. And that's like the funny thing about like conversations and friendships. Like a lot of it is built just on like casual, like yo man. Like, bro, stop that. All right. Not everything has to be deep, but that emotional energy, that attentiveness, you only have so much of it. So how much of it do you want to designate to things that mean nothing? And look, Simone goes further into this. So she explains that the answer to building the attention muscle is counterintuitive because trying harder is wrong because it puts effort back into your own head. So the answer is that we need to want less from an interaction, which means there is a less need to be impressed, validated, and come across as correct. And in that space of not having a desire or a thought in your head, attention will happen naturally. And the playing wasn't something that I did. It was more of something that I stopped doing because I couldn't use my phone and I just had to sit there. So I was like, fuck, I'm going to connect with somebody. And that muscle isn't built by forcing yourself to listen to people you hate. It's just built by wanting less from people you're talking to. It's like, all right, man, like I don't need to contextualize like this girl that I met at the park. Like, what school does she go to? Does she think I'm cool? Like, how am I going to wrap this up in a way that I can get her phone number? Like, stop it. When you think of the end goal, the moment is taken away from. And more often than not, you will have more positive outcomes if you remove that moment from your mind. And look, let's take an example. Phones at the dinner table. Come on, man. Come on. I hate to be like one of those like boomers, but like studies show that even a phone sitting face down on a table reduces the quality of depth of a conversation. And because it's presenting a signal that something else might be more important than the people in front of you. So you got to understand that we have a digital age where we are constantly on our phones. We have a job market that sucks. We have a go-getter culture. And all this does is devalue real conversation. But real connection is so valuable. You can truly like differentiate yourself from everyone else if you can awaken this skill. Because The old woman and I still text. And that happened because neither of us was trying to get anything out of that conversation. There was no goal, no performance, no outcome. We've made conversation so complicated. It's become transactional and goal-oriented in a way that humans never were designed to experience. And in doing so, we've forgotten that it's just two people agreeing to be present with each other in a moment. And that's the beauty of it, is that it doesn't take a lot of effort. It just takes you to shut the fuck up for a second. So you don't need to be interesting. You don't even need to be that interested. Some days you won't want it either, and that's fine. But allowing yourself just to hear other people is the basis for actually learning about yourself and others. And when you do that, other people will show up for you, and your true self will show up too. Let me know, what's wrong with modern conversation? Are we still able to connect to people? How has social media influenced our ability to be seen and heard by others? Let me know in the comments below, and let's talk about it. Peace.